I'm standing in what is known as Fort Garrett. And once again, as I said earlier, Ed Bars would always say, you don't want a fort named after you. And the reason being is you've probably been killed. And that's exactly what happened here. This was commanded by Colonel Isham W. Garrett of Alabama. And he was killed in this fort on June 17th, 1863. He was promoted. He was actually in command here because Brigadier General Edmund Tracy was killed in the Battle of Port Gibson. And so Isham Garrett took over, and then he eventually was killed. And he, after the fact, was promoted to, or he had already been promoted to Brigadier General, but he was unaware of it by the time he was killed. His promotion arrived a few days after his death. And so he was one of the 5 Confederate generals killed at this battle. The highest ranking Union officer killed here was Colonel George Boomer. So no Union generals were killed, but 5 Confederate generals lost their lives, which is kind of interesting considering the Confederates were on the defensive and in the earthworks, but some were killed during this campaign, not just here at Vicksburg itself. But you can see over here on the ridge line, again, the Union lines, and so separated by this terrain here. This is a great spot to kind of view the Union trenches that come up through this, and it may not stand out as well on video, or it may not stand out as well at this time of year on the video, but you can actually see here as it runs down the zigzag trench that goes down, kind of goes past that tree. And depending on the time of year you are here, if the grass isn't tall, you can see it much better. But it's a good example of that zigzag approach that they use. Obviously, they wouldn't want to use a straight line, as the Confederate soldiers could sight right down that line and shoot anybody in the trench. And so they had to zigzag their way up here to kind of keep them out of a line of sight of those rifles. And you can see how close the Union troops were able to get to this fort, and the terrain that they had to cross. Let me take you down here as we walk through the inside of the fort. Again, there's only one cannon up here, and it looks like a 6-pound smoothbore. I'm sure my artillery aficionados will tell me whether I'm right or wrong about that. And I did want to mention that while I'm here, you can reach out to me, abonabhistory@gmail.com. Send me comments, questions, feedback. I'd love to hear from you. Make sure that you're watching these videos and that you're appreciating the content. Feel free to send me an email, comment on the Facebook page on all these videos. Let me know what you think. Let me know your stories of the different fields that I visited. Let me know fields you'd like to see, because again, I know I've got some viewers who are all over the country, and maybe some who aren't even in the country, and it's difficult to get to these different fields. And that's part of the reason I'm doing this, is to show you what these fields are like if you can't get out here yourself. And so here is the bust to Colonel Isham. I would say Isham, but everyone pronounces it Isham Garrett, and he was a colonel of the 20th Alabama. Eventually was promoted to Brigadier General, but he does not know that. It comes after he is deceased. And again, I mean, just look at the detail on it. I'm not, huge into art and that kind of stuff, but the stuff here really is phenomenal. I mean, there are tons of monuments at Gettysburg, and some of them are fantastic, beautifully done. But Vicksburg has all these different busts throughout the park of the different commanders and their parts of the line that Gettysburg doesn't necessarily have in every place, and many battlefields don't have. And so I think that's one of the things that sets it apart, along with the USS Cairo, which is, again, that's one of one. You're not going to see that anywhere else. For many years, I didn't necessarily appreciate this park because it wasn't kind of that set battle like you have at Shiloh, Gettysburg, Antietam, where these two armies just came together, and there was a lot of combat. It lasted a day or 2 days or 3 days, and it was over. This was a siege, and so you know, I didn't, without knowing a ton about the battle, I thought, siege warfare is not really interesting to me. And I really didn't have the love for this park, even though it was close to home, that I had or seemed to have for these other battlefields. It wasn't until I started learning more about it and realizing that there was some infantry fighting here, and when you took the campaign as a whole, that there were a number of battles that led up to it. And that's the other great thing about coming here. If you're from out of town, there are a lot of different battlefields to see that are close by. You can go see the Battle of Raymond, and that's been well preserved by the American Battlefield Trust, as well as a group there out of Raymond. There is a field there, there's signage. It's worth taking a look. You can probably cover it in a couple of hours, but it is still preserved. You can see the site of Big Black River Bridge. There's no signage there. It won't take you long. It's just a cornfield out there along the river, but you can go see that place. Port Gibson is another one. If you've never been there, it can be difficult to locate because it is in the middle of the woods. And if you can get to the town of Port Gibson, you can probably ask somebody for directions so you can navigate there. But the Rodney Road that the troops traveled down at the time of the Civil War is exactly the same. And when you hear me say exactly the same, I mean it's exactly the same. And hopefully I'll get out there soon and I'll be able to take some video of that. But it is still an unpaved road that cuts through the hills out there, and it literally is the same road that the troops marched down in 1863. And that is that battlefield. Again, not a ton of signage there. The Schaefer House is still there. American Battlefield Trust has preserved a good portion of the land out there, but that is something to see. And so you can see all those fields. Graham Gulf, even though there was no land fighting there, there is a state park there that has preserved a lot of the stuff of Grand Gulf, and that is something to see. There's nothing really left at Jackson, unfortunately. Champion Hill, again, there's some things to see there now, and I believe that there are works in place to develop that field. That'll be a great place to check out in the years to come, but there's still stuff to see right now. Chickasaw Bayou, as long as it's not flooded, there you can get out and explore the battlefield, and if you can find that copy of Blue and Gray, I recommend you pick that up. That'll help you navigate that field. If you want that minute detail, if you want more than just the brochure that the National Park Service provides, I recommend that you get a licensed battlefield guide. They have ones that will cover just here, Vicksburg itself, but they also have some guides that cover the entire campaign, and that'll be money well spent if you really want the nitty-gritty details, the stuff that I really love. If you're just kind of the casual fan, you're probably not even on this Facebook page paying attention to these videos, but if you happen to be, you can come and just drive the tour road, and you'll get a good sense of what happened here at the battle. But this is Fort Garrett, named after Colonel Isham Garrett, who was killed here June 17th, 1863.